have the courage to ask for help, understand how you're going to do it and what you want to achieve, and then take responsibility for putting it into action. And one of the biggest things that I want to get across in the book is that everyone struggles. You're not alone. People want to help you. Think of the pleasure you get from helping others. You're denying other people the pleasure of helping you, and that's...
Hello, everyone, and I am delighted to present a good friend of mine, Andy Lopata, who has a very interesting book already available for purchase. And I really like the title, Just Ask. And because a lot of my audience are healers, intuitive, spiritual entrepreneurs, and in our DNA, giving is what we focus and what we are good at. Asking is a crippling point. Like, a lot of healers suffer from inability to ask for help while they are happy to give help. And I thought your book is like a healing book for the healers. So that's why I wanted us to have this conversation. And before I let Andy talk, I wanted to just give you a little bit of context how I know Andy. We met at one of your books. It was the launch of the book, and the death came third, where you talk about fear of public speaking. And I read that book and I followed all your steps and building relationship with you, and it worked in terms we developed friendship because I followed your tips in that book. And then I have your other book recommended, very good for networking. So Andy, tell about yourself.
Well, that's a big question. Thank you, Inga. And it's great to catch up because, yeah, it's been a while since we've spoken. I have been watching what you've been doing from afar and been very impressed. And it's been really great to see. And so I mean, you've mentioned three of my books. You know, this is number 5. Just Ask. I've been working in the field of networking and professional relationships for over 20 years now. Initially running business networking events back in the early 2000s, and now working predominantly with larger organizations, working across the world. Been very lucky, to travel the world with my work, talking about referral strategies, networking, professional relationships, also related to leadership, and now over the last 2 or 3 years, I think actually the first talk was 2016, so 4 years ago, the topic of this book, which is vulnerability and asking for help. And I think you're absolutely right when you say that for people who are there, who are used to giving to other people, very often those people find it hard to ask for that help for themselves. And that's a message that I really want to get out, that people want to help you. Think of the pleasure you get from helping others. You're denying other people the pleasure of helping you, and that's not a good thing for anyone.
Absolutely. And you're right. I sometimes I had to bully my friend into receiving help from me. So because it feels really alien for a lot of people who want to give instead.
Yeah, I think I talk in the book about a friend of mine who was one of the nicest guys you'd ever meet. Very, very generous, but always struggled in business. And one time I had a referral for him, and I was really excited about giving him the referral because I really wanted to help him. And when I offered him the referral, he said he'd pass it on to someone else, or this would be great for so and so. And I had to stop him and say, no, this is for you. And it is a really important skill set to be able to accept help and support from other people. We have to balance that, and we have to understand that as people who want to help, sometimes we can be overeager, and that the help that we perceive people need is not the help they want. The best example of that is that I've discovered through the process of writing this book, one of the biggest lessons I've learned about myself is that I'm a fixer. If you say you have a problem, I want to find the solution.
Mm,
Sometimes you just want to share that you've got a problem. You're not looking for a solution, you're looking for understanding, for someone to listen and nothing more. So I think it's important to get the balance right when you're a giver. Not give too readily, know when
mm.
it's right, and let people give to you.
Speaking about fixing, I think it's also men predominantly, this is how they react to a problem, and women want to be just listened to.
Yeah, yeah. I do look at gender differences in the book. They're not as clear cut as I thought they might be, to be honest. But I
Mm,
do think there is an element of that. There's also the element, and it works the other way. There's the element that men are much quicker to ask for what they want,
mm,
whereas women will tend to sort of beat around the topic and not be direct and say, "I need this help." So, that's from a piece of research conducted by Ivan Meisner, who you know.
mm.
Um, in his book Business Networking and Sex, where he looked at gender differences in networking. And he talked about how men rush in looking for what they can get, but women
Mhm.
never get to that point. And there's probably a reverse side of that as well.
Yeah. And I started reading your book, and in the beginning, you describe your challenges with getting this book published.
Mm.
And can you talk us through in terms what helped you to overcome those challenges?
Yes. So in short, I had the dream contract with a very well known global publisher, but they kept rejecting the manuscripts. And I've got to say, from my perspective, this goes two ways. The manuscripts weren't right, but I don't feel I got the support that I really wanted. And I felt a bit lost and alienated. And actually, when you put a lot of time, effort, and work into something like this, your initial reaction when someone says it's not good enough is not the calm, rational one of, okay, what do I need to do to improve it? It's the emotional one
Mm,
of, well, let's just say the second word is you, which isn't, I didn't say that, by the way, but that's the internal emotional gut reaction.
mm,
But what I did, and I share this in the book because I think what I recognize on reflection is that I went through what I outline in the book in the process of writing the book. I went to my network and I asked for help. I turned to a half a dozen very accomplished authors that I trust, and business leaders, and I sent them copies of the book and I said, "Can I have your feedback?" A couple of people loved it, but the majority said it's not there. I got confused. The stories were too long. The same point kept coming up. And one author who I very much respect said, "Andy, you've got a brilliant book here, but this isn't it." And that gave me the feedback I needed to go back and rewrite it. Now, it's been rewritten 4 times,
wow.
and over a 2 year period. It's a year late in publishing, which is possibly a good thing, not only because the book is better, but actually the timing is probably right, even better now than it was a year
Mm,
ago because of the pandemic. And I've been able to reflect that in the book. Um, but so the publisher were absolutely right in a lot of the things that they said. But I didn't feel supported, and I got that support from my network. And I mean, I've given you the start of the process, but I go into detail in the book about each stage.
mm,
This is where I turned to my network for support and how it damaged my confidence, um, and my belief in the book. And I'm now, this has been a difficult week because you're putting out there finally. And even though people throughout the process have been guiding me on when it's right, you start not to believe them. And
mm,
it's now that people are coming back to me, now they're reading it. And I got a lovely email today, from someone who said this is intelligently written and right for the time. And that's not someone who's I've asked for an opinion, who's going to flatter me. He's going to volunteer that because he means it. And that was, I think, a turning point for me because now I can start to really believe in it again, because I feel passionately about the book. So yeah, we're always reliant on those other people around us, and that this journey has been a very good example of that.
so basically, it's a good thing that that publisher rejected you.
Yes, yes, I would. I would pick on ways that it could have been done, and how the journey could have been more collaborative.
Hmm.
But the ultimately, um, I would not have wanted to bring the book out before it was ready. It wouldn't
And
have done service. It wouldn't have done people reading it any favors either.
at any point, did you have the idea to give up and just shelve the manuscript?
No, of course it crossed my mind. I got to a point where I'd hit a wall. I didn't know what to do. Everything I'd tried had been knocked back. Of course, you think, I was busy. It was it impacted our business tremendously. We had a terrible year last year because I'd spent so many hours on the book. And that's not great leading into a pandemic. Um, and obviously, you have to say at some point, do I put this on ice? But I never considered that seriously because of how much it means to me and how much had gone into it. You'll appreciate this, and given the nature of your audience, I think they'll appreciate it as well. I don't know if you've got to this point in the book. You probably have. Um, I actually saw the light through a dream,
Yes.
and I was really stuck. I didn't know where to go with the book, and I left it lying fallow for a while. And it's a year ago, because it was the night after the last working day before Christmas last year. And I was going down to see friends. And no, actually, I had been down to see friends for 2 or 3 days. So I think that had allowed my mind to switch off from work. And I
Mm.
got home, and I woke up at 3 o'clock in the morning from a dream where I dreamt that two of my speaking colleagues had co authored the book with me, rewritten it with me. They have nothing to do with this topic, and I've not discussed it with them. I think I've told them about the dream, but I'm not even sure I have. Um, and one of them was writing a section on courage, one of them was writing a section on strategy, and one of us was writing a section on uh, putting stuff into action. And I woke up and I just went, that's the structure. Have the courage to ask for help, understand how you're going to do it and what you want to achieve, and then take responsibility for putting it into action. And I woke up and I went to my desk and I wrote these three things down. I thought, great, that's out of my mind now, and go back to sleep. And I couldn't sleep. So I ended up scoping out the whole book over the next 3 or 4 hours. So yeah, that was the unblocking moment, and from there, I managed to get there. It wasn't a smooth road from there, but that was the real turning point.
Yeah. Well, in woo-woo language, it would be called divinely guided, or you got the download. And giving you everyone's a context. So Andy is not your woo-woo person, and we usually, well, it seemed to me we spoke different languages when it comes to the woo-woo world. Um, but when I read this piece about that you saw a dream, you woke up, I thought, yes, Andy is moving into our camp. And then
I-
you also quoted Louise Hay through
yeah.
your interviews, and I thought, oh, this book is so much closer to my world.
Well, I didn't interview Louise Hay. Louise Hay was
Yeah,
was
yeah,
quoted by Hattie Webb, um,
yeah.
who I did interview. But a good friend of mine, Jessica Huey, published with Hay House a fantastic book called Purpose last year, and I think, to be clear, and we've talked about this separately. I've had partners who are very much into the spiritual world. I've got good friends who we laugh and joke about it, because I've got friends who are very far, what you might term out there, very much believers in what you call woo woo. I don't, but nor do I block it all out. I believe everything has shades of grey, and I'm a certain of way along the journey, but not to the full degree.
Yeah, no, it's perfect because so it's broadcasted on Magical Creators Facebook page
Mm.
at the moment, and Magical Creators it's a combination of the woo-woo energy healing
Yeah,
and practical business strategies. So this is my dream actually
yeah,
to mend them together and taking best parts of both
yeah.
worlds and put them into the hybrid.
Excellent. And
So
the people I'm talking about, by the way, The reason that the reason that I can engage respectfully with beliefs that I don't necessarily share, other than a desire to respect other people's beliefs, as, as long as they're deserving of that respect, is that all of those people I'm thinking of are very successful and very switched on business people. And I dated someone years ago who was a speaker, and she spoke about intuition and following your intuition. And she's very, very woo woo. And I remember seeing her speak, and it changed my whole perception of listening to your gut.
Mm,
And her client base is all senior executives, and you have to pay attention to this.
absolutely. Yeah. So, how did you get the idea to write on this particular topic?
Well, so what happened was my business was struggling about 5 years ago, and it was struggling a great deal. I think at one point we were within £400 of our overdraft limit. Pretty much business gone at that point. And I was going to meetings of the Professional Speaking Association, which I call my tribe. A lot of us call us the tribe. A lot of my closest friends come from that community. And I was going to meetings and people were saying, how's business? I was saying, yeah, it's good. And when I recognized that, and I wasn't asking for help, I wasn't allowing people to help me, I recognized, well, if I'm not asking this community, who am I asking? And I'm meant to be about networking and, supporting each other and, achieving more with the help of other people than we can on our own. And I'm not telling people how things really are. So if I'm not asking this community, who am I asking? And if I'm not asking and I consider myself fairly open, what about everyone else? So I set myself a goal, and the goal was I would turn the business around with the help of other people. And when that had happened, because everyone likes a happy ending, I would present at the annual convention of the PSA and encourage everyone to open up and be more honest with each other. And I did that in 2016. In the intervening period, someone that I knew through my networking that I got on well with had passed away, and I found out that he had taken his own life. And he had done it because of money problems. And at his memorial service, there was plenty of money in that room, but nobody knew. His
Mm,
wife wasn't even aware of the extent of it. So that added a different layer to what had been a business message effectively. So I delivered that talk, and I remember saying that, when you speak at the PSA convention, the Professional Speakers Association, it's one of the most daunting talks you can give because everyone in that audience is looking at you and thinking, why is he up on that stage and not me? So it's one of the most nerve wracking talks you could give. But I remember saying that that day I didn't care what people thought of me as long as one person took the message away and changed things. And afterwards, one member emailed me that, while I was still at the hotel, so it was a 3-day conference, that evening, and said, I've just sent this email to everyone in my region. And it said, following Andy's talk, here's what's been happening. And I had 3 or 4 stories like that night. So I saw the impact, and I knew straight away that this wasn't, just one, that wasn't the end of the journey, and that it needed to be a book. Well, it needed to be a keynote, and it wasn't at the core of my expertise. It's close enough to my expertise to fit, because my expertise is professional relationships and networks, and it's your network you turn to ask for help. But it wasn't central enough that I felt comfortable delivering a talk to clients on it. I did a couple of talks for PayPal based on the PSA one, but I didn't feel like an expert in the topic. And one of the best ways to become an expert in the topic is to interview 40 or 50 people around the world, get to understand it, and write a book over 4 years. So the book was almost a vehicle to being able to deliver the talk. But actually, at some point, the book overtook that and became my way to reach people.
excellent. So, and you mentioned, so you're a professional speaker, networking expert. So, how your business um, got affected by the pandemic?
Well, I mean, as I mentioned, we were already struggling. We'd had a very bad year last year. So, in a couple of things happened that helped us. In October last year, I repositioned what I do. What I recognized was that despite many years experience, 20 years experience in my field, and working at the highest level, people still were booking me for what I would call lower level work. Teach this group of, you know, early qualified lawyers how to work a room, which I did, and I can do. But to be honest, that's not my sweet spot at all, and it's not where I get the most satisfaction, and I don't think is where I can deliver the best value. Um, and I repositioned what I do to professional relationships, because just that shift of terminology shifts the perception of what I do to something that's much more congruent with where I'm operating, which is at a more senior level. And that worked. That started bringing in a higher level of work. What it also did was it triggered in me new content, because just that shit, it was another midnight illumination, sort of middle of the night. I was delivering a talk for GlaxoSmithKline the next day, and in the middle of the night, 3 o'clock in the morning again, I'm sitting at my desk writing new models, which then appeared in the book I brought out in the summer. So I've brought out 2 books this year, called Connected Leadership. So I did a lot around repositioning what I do. The other thing that happened is late last year, I joined a business accelerator program. I recognized that what I was doing wasn't working. I needed to shift it. I was talking to someone I'd known for a number of years. Timing was right. He was launching a new business accelerator program called Change Your Game, a guy called Baiju Solanki. And I joined, and it was perfect timing. So I had the opportunity to have workshops to reflect on what I was doing in the business, coaching from Beiju to support that, and a group of other business owners to work with to support that. And yeah, a lot of things came together. So the first, I was putting together retreats and remodeling the whole business when the pandemic struck. So a lot of the things that I was working on had to get shunted onto the back burner, but I had things lined behind it that were virtual. So we did get hit. I lost my dream opportunity. I'd been invited to speak in a big arena, big audience in China to one of the biggest insurance companies in the world, which could have been a huge opportunity. I don't know if I'll get that back. I had a big talk scheduled with the Welsh government. I'm due to have that back. Let's see what happens with the vaccines. That's due to be in the summer. And so we got hit with a few things like that. The business wasn't as robust as some, so the financial cost to us might not have been as high as it was to speakers who were flying at the time. But I built up my mentoring, clients that I'd been working with for a number of years, and been trying to get that breakthrough. I got the breakthrough. So actually, I've just had a record quarter. And that's come through perseverance, through adapting how I deliver. And I also think it's because the topic has become hotter, because people want to know, how do we build and maintain professional relationships when we can't get in front of people and they don't know what to do? Whereas they've always assumed they know what to do when it's things they're used to. So the pandemic's taken people out of their comfort zone in terms of maintaining their relationships. So my clients have turned to me. So we've had a very good quarter. January looks really positive. It's a tough year till September, and then it's picked up since. It's also meant I've been creative. So as I said, a book came out in the summer, a book's just come out this week, and a podcast launched in September. So I say that's a pretty proactive and creative 6 months.
Absolutely. So your book is available at the moment for 99p on Amazon.
Yes,
The Kindle version.
Yeah, the Kindle.
The Kindle version. And also, if somebody wants a paperback, Amazon has reduced it as well.
Yes. Yeah.
So I would highly recommend get this book, because, as I said, I think it's a healing book for the healers, especially. I've started reading it, and it was very easy to read and very difficult to stop.
I like
Because
that.
I want to keep reading. And can you talk? It was a very interesting moment that you described in your book, the Hippo.
Hippo Time.
Yes, the Hippo Time. Because I know that I was talking about something similar in terms when you feel really bad, don't try to get out of feeling bad. Enjoy, feeling miserable. Can you talk through this Hippo days or Hippo time?
Yeah, so Hippo Time isn't my concept. Hippo Time comes from a guy called Paul McGee. And Paul McGee's the author who said, "You've got a brilliant book here, Andy, but this isn't it." Paul McGee's very well known. Some of your um, uh, audience may well know Paul for his books. His most famous book is Sumo, Shut Up, Move On. He's also written books on self-confidence and similar topics. If you ever look at the bookstores at the airport, you'll see Paul's books there constantly. Hippo Time is in Sumo, and he said that the story he tells is that someone said to him, "Your concept of sumo, shut up, move on, is great, but sometimes I don't want to. I just want to wallow." And Paul said that as soon as he heard the word wallow, he thought of a hippopotamus wallowing in mud. So he came up with the concept of Hippo Time. And, so just over a year ago, in October or November last year, I'd just been told by the publisher that the latest draft that I'd gone away to work on and was really happy with was rejected again. And that was, I think, the third draft. And that was when the despair came and I didn't know where to go. And I was speaking at a charity conference that I run in conjunction with other local businesses every year. And the whole idea of that was going to be the launch of Just Ask. We were the local council were buying 100 copies of the book. We were going to give it to every audience member, add value. We raise money for charities with that. This was my local area. It was going to be a great way to do it. And I had to stand on stage and deliver that talk, knowing it had been rejected. And I hadn't told anyone. So it had been 2 weeks before the conference. I hadn't told anyone what had happened. And my dad, who sadly passed away in September, it was my local area. My parents live a mile from me, and my dad was wheelchair bound at the time. He had Parkinson's, and he hadn't seen me speak on this. The business is named after the two of us. We founded it together. We were in business together before, so this was an opportunity for him to see the new content because it was wheelchair accessible. It was a mile from his home. So my parents were there. I hadn't told them. So I had to tell them the night before because I didn't know if I'd mention it on stage or not. But the key point was I didn't tell anyone for 2 weeks because I wasn't in the right space to tell anyone for 2 weeks. I needed to just sit on it, reflect, feel miserable, feel angry, feel whatever, and let those emotions process before I could have the conversation. That's Hippo Time.
And I think you mentioned as well, like when you ask for help, you ask after you spend some time with your emotions. So you get this clarity and then you go for help.
That's it. I think you have to, particularly if it's something that's a big hit or affecting you deeply, you're asking for help too soon means you're probably asking for the wrong questions. You're looking for the wrong answers, and your emotions will drive your response to your answers. And none of that is going to help you. So if you're feeling emotional, it's better to sit on it for a while, reflect, and get to a point of clarity and balance. And this goes into the strategy element, then understand what you want to find out, what help you need, and who's best positioned to support you.
And I think, with your story, what you've done, you gave permission to people not to give up on their dreams, because on the surface, you've been publishing so many books. It's it seems that success goes up, up, and up for you. Like, I wouldn't imagine without reading the stories that you have gone through some difficulties. Whereas when somebody just starts out, it's their first book, they may give up, having situations similar to yours.
And one of the biggest things that I want to get across in the book is that everyone struggles. You're not alone. There's stories in there. I interviewed Leon McKenzie, and Leon was a Premiership footballer. And I start his story by talking about him scoring the winning goal against Manchester United in the Premier League. And how everyone's worshipping him. And there's an if you Google it on YouTube, he rips his shirt off, and he's got this great physique. He went on to become a boxer after he finished his football career, and he's standing there posing and looking amazing. And he went home that night and felt desperately alone because he couldn't see his kids, but nobody sees that. We mentioned Hattie Webb, who I interviewed. Hattie's a singer, and she and her sister were backing singers for Leonard Cohen and Tom Petty. And I share examples of both Leonard Cohen and Tom Petty sharing their vulnerability. These are phenomenal rock stars, globally worshipped. And, Tom Petty turned around on the way to the stage in Vancouver and said, I don't know if I can do this. Leonard Cohen was getting a cup of coffee and his hand was shaking, as he waited to go on stage. When people see me speak, they think it's easy, but they don't see the way I'm sweating, the physical response I have, the emotional response before I go on stage. What's going on inside my head? Why do they want to listen to you? Why are they paying you so much? You can't remember what you got to say. All of that's going on. Nobody sees it. And I think it's really important to hang on to that because it makes our own challenges more digestible, if you like.
Yeah.
It's plenty easier to go through, but at least we know that we're not alone and it's not unusual.
Yeah, I think that's why it has the healing effect. So thank you. I will put the link as well to your book, and I think people need to get it and also write the reviews on Amazon, so you get on the best-selling list as well as a result.
More visibility, more people read it, more lives get impacted, and that's really what I want to do with it.